Hi, I'm McCluskey. I'm a software engineer at Google. I work out of the RDU office in Durham, North Carolina. Uh, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the present and future of Beam Python's performance. Uh, Beam Summit has become where I show up and take 20 to 25 minutes to complain about Python as a language. I did this last year too. Last year, there was not another talk opposite me, so I got to hold the entire conference hostage while I did this, but everyone got bailed out by agentic talks this year, so everyone was spared. So we're going to talk about why performance matters at all, how to improve Beam Python performance right now, and then sort of the future. I will say I talk about Beam Python here. A lot of this is just broadly Python as a language. There are a lot of things that you can configure now or will be able to configure the next year or two that will dramatically impact any Python code performance, not just Beam. Quick thing about me, that's me from last year. I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill in May of 2020. I joined Google in July that year, and then I've been working on Dataflow since June of 2021. I checked my calendar, that is 5 years as of yesterday. I've been around for a while. I also didn't realize that is now half of Beam's kind of lifetime, which is insane to think about. I still feel like the new kid on the block sometimes, and then someone will reference something that happened 4 years ago that led to a crazy code decision, and I know why that happened. I've been around for a little bit. Over the last 5 years, I'd say it's safe to say that software development and deployment have changed a lot. We've seen the rise of generative AI and these agentic coding loops to the point where your velocity in terms of writing and deploying code is a lot faster. Writing code is no longer a bottleneck. Now we need to look at running code, improving code. Where are those bottlenecks? And then if you are someone who has been working on any sort of deployment into the cloud and you have need of things like hardware accelerators, GPUs, TPUs, getting cloud compute can be much harder now. There's a lot more demand for these accelerators. It can be harder to get them. So when you do have them, you want to maximize your use of them. And then faster data processing in general, with the same hardware needs, is cheaper. If you can get the most bang for your buck, that's great. And with Beam and data processing, Python is bad for this. For interpreted languages, they're slower than compiled languages. You have to interpret line by line. It's slow. Dynamically typed languages move errors to runtime versus compile time, so your development cycle can be slower. I complained about this in my talk last year. If you would like to check it out, it is on YouTube. And then there are core design decisions in the language that actually trade off performance for thread safety. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. But these are also the same drawbacks and design decisions that make Python so popular. Interpreted languages give you things like notebook environments and interactive environments where you can really dig into data easily. Dynamic typing and duck typing mean you don't have to fiddle with type annotations if you don't have to. Having thread safety be a guarantee of the language effectively means that you aren't messing with race conditions when you're just trying to explore a data set. These are real pros that led to data scientists adopting Python. With all of these things in mind, how do we improve how Python performs today, right now? And there are kind of two ways to look at this. The first are incremental improvements to the language itself, and then leveraging compiled languages where you can. So incremental improvement, Python generally, not all the time, but generally gets more performant with every new minor version. The current release cadence, they've standardized it. A new Python minor version comes out every October. The beta branch for 3.15, which is this year's release, is available now. I would love to mess with it with Beam, but unfortunately not all of Beam's dependencies work with it yet. But we see that release cycle every year, and there are improvements and new features. But even without the new features and optional things, it gets faster. So to prove this, I put together a little experimental setup. So I ran a local word count pipeline on the Prism runner against the entire plain text of simple English Wikipedia. That's about 178 megabytes of data. If you've ever done a word count pipeline in Dataflow, the canonical input is actually just the text of King Lear. That doesn't take a lot of time to run. So I wanted to have a bigger text corpus so we could see some more variance. And then we ran against Python 3.10 through 3.14 with Beam 2.74, the latest release. And we ran on this laptop right here. 2024 MacBook Pro M4 Pro processor, about 46 gigs of RAM in here, which may be too much, but that's okay. And then I ran each pipeline 25 times. So I had scripts set up to do this, and then I hit run, and then I walked away. That's a lie. I tried to do other work, and then I realized that depending on what I was doing on the laptop, I could actually slow down the pipeline. So I did have to physically leave. And here's what we get. So there's a slight regression from 3.11 to 3.12, but as you can see, generally we're getting faster. And with 3.14, the most recent release from last year, being the fastest. So the takeaway here is that unless you have a key dependency that doesn't support the latest Python version yet, it's pretty beneficial to go to the next version when it comes out. I have an asterisk to that, and that is usually when a new Python version comes out, it takes a while for Beam to support it. I apologize. I do that every year, and sometimes it takes time. But I try to get it out relatively quickly. But now we're going to talk about leveraging compiled language. So within pipelines, this actually exists in the Beam repo. Beam uses Cython, which is a project that was partially created by Robert Bradshaw, who wrote an awful lot of the core of the Python SDK. It produces compiled extensions for common components like metrics, counters, combiners, some simple transforms, things that get run often but don't necessarily need Python memory and semantics to execute. If you have Cython in your environment when you install Beam, it'll generate these extensions automatically through setup.py. You can also use interop with other languages for performance gains, C, C++. These are tricks that you see in a lot of machine learning libraries that use hardware accelerators for speed. Now, there's this really cool library called Pyo3 that produces Rust bindings for Python. There's an example in the repo now called word count Rust that does this. Your mileage, unfortunately, will vary on performance. I really wanted to benchmark it against the pure Python code. The way this library works is there's a translation cost from Python types to the Rust primitives, and you pay that when you translate elements over. So, like I said, we were running about 30 to 40 seconds for all of that Wikipedia text in pure Python. The Rust word count example was taking about 35 seconds just for King Lear. So performance is not quite there yet. If you have a lot of pre-processing steps, that may work. You just shove it all into one transform and use the Rust for that. But not quite there yet. Something to keep an eye out for. But when you run and develop your pipeline, that's not the only steps you're interacting with tooling for. There's a lot of tooling that we use in Beam and in typical development for things like linting and static type checking, sort of sanity checking your Python code. This should not be a development bottleneck. This is stuff that will run every time you produce code, things when you're trying to make PRs against the Beam repo or developing your own pipeline. This should be fast because this is feedback. Ken was talking about in agentic models, you want signal that a model can look at and then correct. So if you've ever made a PR against Beam, you've probably seen that we have a Python linting workflow that runs against every PR, and more importantly, runs against every commit that gets opened against a PR. And it took a lot of time. And while I was working on a couple of projects, I realized that I was spending more time waiting on those workflows to be green or red and give me some sort of signal than I was really spending on the code itself. So I replaced Pylint and MyPy with two packages called Rough, which is created by a company called Astral, and Pyrefly, which is a meta-backed package. Rough does linting and formatting. Pyrefly does static type checking. And if the amount of times we run the linting workflow on GitHub holds from 2025 to 2026, the difference is 865 hours of pre-commit compute time year over year. So that is runners that can work on actual meaningful signal workflows and less time you're spending staring at a workflow waiting for feedback. In a more anecdotal sense, on this same laptop I benchmarked on, Pyrefly on the entire Beam Python codebase runs in under a second. It replaced MyPy, which took about 48 seconds to run for a single execution. Pylint is even funnier. Rough takes sub-second time to run on the entire Beam codebase. Pylint takes a minute and a half. That is a massive savings even for local development, let alone when you're working with something running for CI. So that's stuff you can do now. Improve your tooling, use new Python versions, but there's stuff coming down the pipeline that is very exciting too. Those two elements are built-in just-in-time compilation to the language, as well as free-threaded or no-GIL execution. So just-in-time compilation, this idea that the runtime can identify hot functions and then compile them rather than interpret them to speed them up. Python 3.13 introduced an option for this that, as best I can tell, in 3.13 did nothing. It was just framework. It didn't actually compile anything yet. But in 3.14, there's a more robust implementation with the full feature release coming this year in 3.15. You pass an X flag or set the environment variable Python JIT equals 1 in your runtime, and it tries to use this feature. So this is going to be best for CPU-bound workloads, things that are actively running compute, nothing that's waiting on I/O as much. You're compiling these things on the fly for better performance. Once again, I wanted to benchmark this against pure 3.14 and show some sort of meaningful difference, but the 3.14 implementation is not there yet. The Python Foundation estimates you can get anywhere from a 5% performance decrease to a 10% performance increase on the right workflow. Word count is not one of those workloads, unfortunately. But 3.15, there's been a lot of work that has been put into this feature, so I'm hoping we see real improvement and we can use it, because this is something we could add now as an option and hopefully see gains. The real exciting part is free-threaded Python. This has been something that people have been looking for a while. And from the beginning, the CPython interpreter has had global interpreter lock. Enforces the idea that only one thread can execute Python bytecode at a time. So what this means is that you only have one thread accessing Python memory at a time, which gives you thread safety. The problem is that means if you're doing compute, you don't have true parallelism. Multi-threaded Python is kind of a lie in a sense, that you don't actually have two threads running concurrently. Now, there are some asterisks to this. If you have a compiled extension that calls into a compiled language, they generally don't need to respect the GIL once you've called into those threads. And then I/O operations typically are smart enough to release the GIL, so you're not just blocked on I/O, and other things that are running compute can run. But if you're doing computation-heavy things, like people want to do with their data, you don't get true concurrency. So from Python 3.13 on, you can turn it off. You have to use a special runtime. If you use anything like PyEnv to manage your virtual environments, you have to specify your version with a T at the end. So 3.13T, 3.14T, those are free-threaded runtimes. And any sort of wheels that are compiled, use compiled extensions, they have to be built specifically for these runtimes. At the same time, they have these version denoted with T, so you'll see those. Same thing, compute-bound workloads benefit the most from disabling the GIL. Single-threaded and I/O-bound workloads actually see performance losses. A single-threaded program will actually see about a 10% performance reduction without the GIL. So you really need to know when to disable it. But if you're in the right workload, it's good to disable. And the just-in-time compilation actually doesn't work with free-threaded Python. You have to pick one or the other. This is unfortunate in that there's no single correct answer for how to improve performance with these tools. You kind of have to pick and choose based on what is best for you. It does involve some experimentation. But why isn't free-threaded Python in Beam yet? Well, there are a couple of problems. The first is dependency support. If you want to support free-threaded Python, you actually have to have all of your dependencies supported first. You can't really mix and match. This also means any user code dependencies that you're bringing to the table for your use case do need to support free threading as well. The main dependency we're waiting on for Beam is actually gRPC. If you're familiar with how Beam works under the hood, just about everything is a gRPC call. We really need that to work in a free-threaded context before we can advance. But from what I understand, that team is aware of the fact that people really want to turn the GIL off with gRPC. So hopefully we'll see that come to fruition soon. And then if you use compiled extensions, some frameworks kind of lean on the fact that you only have one thread calling into a compiled extension at a time. So you are potentially avoiding race conditions. Python as a framework actually lets you annotate functions with needing the GIL or not to respect it or not. So if everything can be free-threaded and you don't have the GIL at all, you now have to reevaluate all the functions that maybe leaned on it in the past to detect race conditions and crashes. So that's a little bit of extra work within the repo. And then something that is kind of overlooked sometimes is that you also have to start running your tests in multi-threaded ways and running them multiple times to similarly find Python race conditions. Fortunately, PyTest and UnitTest have plugins now that will configure this for you. So that's a matter of just updating Beam's tests that we already have. Fortunately, we have a pretty robust test suite, so that should not be too big of a deal. So in summary, we have the present. Use the latest Python language version, leverage compiled languages to speed up your pipeline development and your execution. Please stop waiting on linting workflows, type checking workflows. Don't wait on those things. They should be fast. You shouldn't have to wait 90 seconds to see that a line is too long in your code. And then the future, we have just-in-time compilation for faster execution with the GIL, and then free-threaded execution for true concurrency coming up, which is really exciting. Couple things worth reading. I have 2 docs that have gone on the dev list where I've talked about sort of these things. Barriers to free-threaded execution talks about the GIL. That was actually written before we supported Python 3.14, so some of it's a little out of date, but the core ideas of why we're waiting to apply there. The Python improvement proposal that was accepted to remove the GIL after multiple attempts over multiple years is also a very good read because you can see what finally convinced the Python Foundation to go ahead with this work. For a long time, the idea was that it was too annoying and too difficult to rip the GIL out and what the benefit wasn't there. So you can see the argument that convinced them otherwise. And then there's also a doc about the Rust-based packages that I was really excited about swapping us over to, even though it just makes things faster. It's not really a feature, but cool to see if you have conventional Python-based tooling that you want to swap out and are frustrated with. That's a good place to start.